HARK, we are here with another episode of Regroup Phase. In today's episode, we're going to go over one specific event, but there were 3 1Ks that went down on Saturday as of recording, March 30th. In those 3 1Ks, we had one in Pennsylvania, we had one in Washington, and one in Wisconsin. The overall winners for each of those was the Washington event was 12 players. Boba won that one. The Wisconsin event was 38 players. Boba also won that one. But in the PA event, which was covered by GoldenDicePodcast, I'm going to go ahead and link you to the stream down below that Jack and the crew did. It was excellent coverage. Chat was a little uppity, but you know, people are going to be people. The eventual winner of that event, and we're going to be talking about 7 of the top 8 decks in this event, was Sabine. So it's actually very interesting to see that 2 of the other 1Ks came down to Boba matches, while the Pennsylvania 1K, which was a very diverse top 8 different leaders in top 8, the eventual winner was Sabine. So it looks like it was a control heavy meta that an aggro deck was able to get under people's skin and win games. So we're going to go over these specifically and a couple of interesting ones up front, the normal ones in the middle, and then our eventual winner at the end. I'll try to go over these as quickly as possible. The links to these decks will also be in the description below. As soon as they are available, they should be available by the time this video goes out. But let's get started with coverage of the PA 1K top 8. So before we jump into these deck lists, I'm going to go over the top 8 really quick and each of the decks, the pairings, and how they eventually whittled down into the finals. So our top 8 total was Iden on Energy Conversion Lab, Han on Energy Conversion Lab, Tarkin on a red 30 health base, Sabine on Energy Conversion Lab, Rennic on an Energy Conversion Lab, a Vader deck on Command Center, so 30 health base, Boba on Energy Conversion Lab, and Palpatine on Castro City, which is a 30 health base. In those matchups, Iden beat Han, Sabine beat Tarkin, Krennic beat Vader by forfeit because the Vader player left in top 8. I don't actually know why this was the case, but it was. And then Palpatine beat the lone Boba Fett in top 8. Our top 4 matchups were Iden versus Sabine and Krennic versus Palp. Sabine and Palp took those matches. And then in the finals, Sabine was able to take the whole event down 2-1 against Palpatine and win themselves a nice cut of the top prize. It actually sounds like top 4 split between the 4 of them, which is actually a very cool way. But for honor and for tournament results, they ended up playing out the rounds so that way people could get an idea of what's going down. So we've got 7 deck lists here. Let's get to it. We're looking here at the Tarkin deck. It's your average deck list. It does actually have Force Throw in here, and that is because it has a couple of Force users in Fifth Brother, Darth Vader, and Emperor Palpatine, but this is your average Imperial dot deck that you're going to see in Command and Aggression. I do like the fact that the Tarkin player was on the Catacombs of Kadera, which means that they played a 30 health base, and the sideboard options with the Force Choke, the Disabling Fang Fighter, the Devastator, and the Yularen really helps them be able to manage specific matchups. Not a lot of matchups required upgrade management, but most players were running some form of upgrade hate in their deck in case they came up against something like the Traitorous or the Entrenched or the Lightsabers, as given in this deck. It does have 3 copies of that. You'll note that of the decks that did choose to run Command, except for the Vader deck, they all ran Energy Conversion Lab. Energy Conversion Lab, obviously one of the best decks in the format, and it is something that is going to probably stay the same until we hit set 2. Moving on, we have here the Krennic deck, which is, again, your average control level deck that's going to be played in Vigilance and Command, running Energy Conversion Lab, running only 1 Reinforcement Walker main board, but 3 Relentless main board. And I actually watched a couple of these matches, and Relentless did work. There was an interaction between the Iden player and the Han player, where the Han player played themselves into playing an event while Relentless was on the board, which really did change the scope of the game. Mind you, that specific interaction, the first time it happened, didn't end up resulting in the game going in the favor of the Iden player because of that. They already had a backup play in their hand to be able to eliminate a unit off the board, but you got to pay attention when Relentless is on the board because it does negate the first event that you play each turn. 3 Technicians, 3 Resupply, it's the normal thing. 2 Strike Trues, interesting choice in here, but you have your average Steadfast Battalion. Only 2 copies of Vanquish, 2 copies of Power to the Dark Side, 2 copies of Make an Opening. No Takedown. No Takedown is bold. 1 copy of Power to the Dark Side in the sideboard. I do like like the 3 copies of System Patrol Craft in the sideboard. It allows you a little bit of extra space in the space arena and gives you an opportunity to get some extra defenses on the board if your opponent is running a lot of little ships that can't really overcome System Patrol Craft without sacrificing themselves and getting 2-for-1s in those exchanges. Our next deck is the Boba deck, which did end up getting taken down by the Palp deck. It is your average Boba deck. It not necessarily your average Boba deck. It was playing Patrolling V-Wings, which was a little confusing to me, but it looks like this player wanted to go a little bit more space than ground, which is not necessarily a bad idea. And Patrolling V-Wing is a card that does eventually refill itself. You play it, you get the card back, and so on and so forth. 2 cost, a 1/1 in space that can plink, take out a shield, do whatever, but also get the card back is very good. Sideboarding copies of Change of Heart and the Reinforcement Walker. Reinforcement Walker is a big play. A lot of people cited that in when they had the opportunity to do so. It was a very interesting choice of card. One that I've also put into my side deck for this specific build, but not in the same way that this player managed to be able to pull it off. We have here one of the more interesting decks. This was just a regular Han deck. It was not Casino deck. Big tech choice. This obscene super laser technician. It was the talk of the town in chat. Nobody really understood why the player chose to run super laser technician. I hope at some point in the near future we can get some reasoning behind that. I was trying to math it out myself in my head, and then I realized if you do play it with the energy conversion lab play, you still don't get to 7 because you've spent 5 resources to do that, so you only have 2 resources left. But I'm sure this player had a plan. 2 copies main board of Change of Heart, 1 sideboard, 3 copies of Lando sideboard, 3 copies of Star Viper sideboard, 3 copies of Home 1 main board, 3 copies of Traitorous main board. Very interesting decisions across the board. I like the deck. Supposedly it's supposed to have a really good Boba matchup. We didn't get to see that on stream with the way that the pairings managed to work out, and this deck ended up losing to the control matchup anyway. But I did hear that in one of the other events, I believe it was the Wisconsin event, there was one Han that was 4-1 against Boba's on the day, which was very interesting. We have here this Palpatine, which made it to the finals against the Sabine deck. And this is a just smorgasbord of cards that are in here. We've got 3 Yolarans, 3 Ozls, 3 Force Chokes, 3 Viper Probe Droids, 3 Royal Guards. Those were really annoying for one of the players to be able to deal with in their matchup. 3 Technicians, 2 Star Vipers, 3 Resupplies, 2 Fifth Brothers, 1 Fallen Lightsaber, 3 Open Fire, 3 Cell Block Guard, yes! 3 copies of Interceptor, 1 copy of Rook, 3 copies of Barrage, 1 copy of Traitorous, 2 more on the sideboard, 1 copy of Seven Sister, 3 copies of Ruthless Raider, 3 copies of Vader, 3 copies of Emperor Palpatine, 3 Stormtroopers in the sideboard, 2 Force Lightning, 1 Emperor's Legion, the aforementioned 2 Traitorous, and 2 Devastators. No Tarkin. Town specifically decided to go on the 30 health base to give them as much room as they possibly can to be able to beat the aggro matchup, which this deck is insanely weak to. Unfortunately, they were not able to pull that off in the finals, but I hear the one game they did manage to win, that 30 health did come into play. So interesting tech choices with Ozzel. Yularen without a gigantic critical mass of the command cards, but any health is good health when it comes to trying to survive against the matchup that you are the weakest against. One of the more important decks in here, and the reason why I decided to showcase this specifically, is this Iden Command deck on Energy Conversion Lab. It is the traditional Iden deck, except that it's a lot of twosies and onesies with the finishing groups of copies of those cards in the sideboard. So you've got 2 Regional Governors, main deck, with 1 in the sideboard, 2 Cell Block Guards with 1 in the sideboard, 2 Vanquish, 1 in the sideboard, 2 Tank Down, 1 on the sideboard, 1 Dooku, 1 on the sideboard, 1 Super Laser Blast, 1 on the sideboard, 1 Devastator, 1 in the sideboard. Well, that Relentless in the sideboard, though, did a lot of work against that Han, as we were talking about earlier. It's a very interesting match. If you have the opportunity to go check that out, check the link below. It'll have all the matchups in there. It was the first round of top 8 that the Han deck went up against the Iden deck. There was a critical misplay that caused a judge to come over, and the chat went nuts as a result of that. But it was interesting to see how these 2 decks play against each other. Reinforcement Walker, I think, might have been the MVP of a lot of these matchups. We're seeing a lot of command decks running Reinforcement Walker, if not in the main board, at least in the sideboard, to be able to get that heal when necessary or draw the card And it really does do that work, because you're looking at an 8 cost card that allows you to get a 6/9 on the board. So it's going to be very difficult to get off the board. It adds that immediate when played effect to be able to heal your base, or like I said, discard the card. And then on attack, you get to continue to do that same thing. So you're going to be trying to heal at the cost of cards off the top of your deck. Our eventual winner of this event, Sabine Command, the scourge of the early meta. It looks like we're going to be sitting in our rotational fashion because of the big UK event that happened last week. Boba was 8 of the top 8 spots in that. Players leaned more towards control, and this player who piloted the Sabine deck managed to be able to correctly call the meta as control and run through and be able to run that aggression-based strategy aggro, just smack your opponent in the face with as much damage as possible. Main boarding 3 copies of Metal Ceremony, 3 copies of Rebel Assault, 3 Spec Force Soldier, 3 Battlefield Marine, 3 Green Squadron A-Wing, 3 Sabine Wren, 3 Alliance X-Wings, 3 Echo-based Defenders, 3 Fighters for Freedom, 3 Red 3, 3 For a Cause I Believe in, 3 Fleet Lieutenants, 3 Wing Leaders, 3 K2SO, 3 Steadfast Battalion, 3 Guerrilla Attack Pod, 2 copies of U-Wing Reinforcement, 2 copies of Heroic Sacrifice, 2 copies of Wolf, 3 copies of Disabling Fang Fighter, and 3 copies of Bright Hope in the sideboard for the upgrades and the space matchups. And if you need to stop healing from Iden, all kinds of cool cards that are available to defeat the decks of the day, which were pretty heavily control flavored. There was not too many Boba decks out there. I believe, if I remember correctly, according to the tweet that I saw, I think it was 7 total, 6 total Boba decks out of 32 total players. There was a cap for the 1K. The Sabine deck managed to call the meta correctly, and that's why this player was able to take down the tournament and win themselves, like I said, a nice share of the prize pool. And there it is, 8 leaders for 8 distinct top 8 spots, showcasing 7 of them because one of the people just didn't play top 8. But with Sabine taking down this event and Boba taking down the 2 other reported events, thank you to Inception over at the Garbage Rollers for reporting those in the events section of the main Star Wars Discord. Are we worried about Boba Fett? I'm not. Boba Fett has its bad matchups, just as Sabine has her bad matchups, just as Iden has her bad matchups. We're in a cycle right now. Aggro beats control, beats mid-range, beats aggro. And that's kind of just the cycle that happens in these types of games. Aggro is able to get in and knock out control. Control is able to keep the mid-range out of what needs to happen for its successful strategy, and mid-range is able to do the same thing, just on a smaller scale, but also still pump out that extra damage. If you're going to bring a deck to a tournament, you need to focus on your weaknesses and while also maintaining your strengths. I have an idea for a deck. I might put out a video for it later. I might not. Who knows? It could be a crock of crap. I still need to do some testing, but we are in an interesting spot where there's 3.5 decks that are established as the meta, but I think other decks, other leaders, other potential combinations have a really good potential of sneaking in and eking out those high competitive wins against players that are not prepared to see things like Tarkin or Grand Inquisitor or Iden on a different build, or even Cassian. There's a lot of hubbub going on about Cassian Cunning right now. I want to see somebody get to the finals of an event and do well with that, so it's not just a bunch of talk. I know a lot of people were super happy about Danny playing Cassian on the KTOD PAX East video, so it'll be interesting to see what comes up. I hear rumblings about Chewie, lots of different things. The meta isn't completely solved. We've just gotten to the standard TCG area of the meta for competitive, for Star Wars Unlimited, and all of this goes out the window when Set 2 starts dropping its previews and when Set 2 releases, because we are ready for new cards and we are ready to see where this game is going to take us over the next couple months into the remainder of the year. So with that, we are done. Thank you very much to Jack for getting me these deck lists, so that way I can pop them up, get them on the screen, and everybody can check them out. Links to the deck lists in the description below. Links to the Golden Dice Podcast stream video also in the description below. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. Remember to like and comment on this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on all of my lovely social medias. If you'd like to support me, go ahead and hit that membership button or the super thanks button. It helps me a lot. Overall, I appreciate you just watching these videos, clicking all the things that make YouTube put my videos in front of other people, and that would be fantastic. So with that, I am done. My voice hurts, I'm tired, and I will see you in the stars.